The U.S. Marine Corps conducted the world's first combat helicopter assault in Korea in 1951, and never stopped redefining what helicopters could do. This video covers every helicopter the Marine Corps has ever operated, from the earliest machines to the platforms flying combat missions right now. One of them has carried every U.S. president since Eisenhower, and it still does. A-1G Huey Cobra. Borrowed from the U.S. Army during Vietnam, the Marines briefly flew this single-engine gunship before demanding a twin-engine version for over-water operations. A H-1J Cobra, the first twin-engine Cobra built specifically for the Marines, entering service in 1971 with shipboard-safe redundancy and a 3-barrel 20mm cannon. A-1T Improved C Cobra, a stretched, more powerful evolution of the C Cobra introduced in the late 1970s with greater payload capacity in high-heat environments. A-1W Super Cobra, the definitive marine attack helicopter for over 3 decades, entering service in 1986 and flying combat in every major conflict through 2020. H-1Z Viper, the current frontline marine attack helicopter, fielding a 4-blade composite rotor, digital cockpit, and Hellfire missile capability since reaching combat readiness in 2010. If you're interested in military aviation history, subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Bell 309 King Cobra, an experimental all-weather attack prototype tested in the early 1970s, built in 2 examples, but never selected for production by any branch. A 1E armed gunship configuration, Marine Hueys were routinely armed with rocket pods and door guns in Vietnam, serving as escort gunships before the dedicated AIH-1 Cobra variants arrived. Sikorsky S-67 Blackhawk, an experimental armed compound helicopter evaluated in the early 1970s, demonstrating high-speed attack potential for future military requirements. Bell 309 King Cobra single-engine variant. The second prototype used a single Lycoming T-55 engine configuration, exploring whether a less complex power plant could still meet marine attack requirements. A-1W Night Targeting Upgrade. Late production Super Cobras equipped with the Night Star forward-looking infrared targeting system, significantly expanding night attack capability before the AH-1Z replaced the fleet. UH-1E Iroquois, the marine-specific Huey variant, introduced in 1963, with rotor brakes and deck tie-downs designed for shipboard use, the first turbine utility helicopter in Marine service. UH-1N Twin Huey, a twin-engine Huey that became the backbone of marine utility aviation for decades, serving in troop transport, liaison, and support roles from 1971 onward. UH-1Y Venom, the modernized 4-blade successor to the Twin Huey, sharing 84% commonality with the AH-1Z and entering Marine service in 2008. MV-22B Osprey, the tiltrotor that replaced the CH-46 as the Corps' primary assault transport, operating at helicopter and fixed-wing speeds simultaneously since 2007. HH-1K, a dedicated search and rescue Huey variant, operated by the Navy and Marines, fitted with a rescue hoist for overwater recovery missions throughout the Vietnam era. A 34D Seahorse, the last piston-powered helicopter in Marine service, the primary workhorse of Marine Vietnam aviation until turbine-powered types replaced it in 1969. Sikorsky IH-37C Mojave, the largest helicopter in the Western world when it entered Marine service in 1956, originally designated HR-2S1 and capable of lifting a jeep or external artillery through its clamshell nose doors. Bell HTL-7, a late-model Bell 47 variant used by the Marines in the early 1950s for liaison and utility missions, one of the first generation of turbine transitional utility platforms in Marine rotary-wing service. Common Hoop 2 Piasecki Retriever, a compact tandem rotor utility helicopter used from ships and shore bases in the early 1950s, capable of internal litter transport and general utility duties in confined shipboard environments. CH-53, a Sea Stallion, the first production heavy lifter for the Marines, entering service in 1966 with capacity for 38 troops or external loads exceeding 20,000 pounds. Chapter 53, DC Stallion, an upgraded variant with more powerful engines and greater troop capacity. Widely deployed through the 1970s and into the 1980s across Marine Expeditionary Units. Evacuation 53, E Super Stallion, the 3-engine, 7-blade successor to the Sea Stallion, introduced in 1981 and still among the most powerful helicopters in the Western world. Evacuation 53, Tioki King Stallion, the newest marine heavy lifter, featuring triple engines and composite rotor blades with a lift capacity 3 times that of the Super Stallion, entering service in 2018. RH-53 DC Stallion, a mine-sweeping variant operated by the Navy and Marines for airborne mine countermeasures, famously employed during Operation Eagle Claw in 1980. Chapter 53 or 2 Sorfort, in external lift configuration. Super Stallions, equipped with triple-hook cargo systems, capable of carrying multiple external loads simultaneously, allowing Marines to move artillery and vehicle assets in a single sortie. CH-53D in combat assault transport configuration. The CH-53D conducted major marine assault lifts in Vietnam and later in Lebanon, serving as the primary means of rapid force insertion for Marine Expeditionary Units throughout the Cold War. Sikorsky HR-2S1 Mojave. The original Marine Corps designation for the Sikorsky CH-37, the HR-2S1 was the first heavy-lift helicopter purpose-built for the Marine Corps and could recover downed aircraft from forward combat zones. Chapter 53 Sorf E in Special Operations configuration. Super Stallions fitted with extended-range fuel tanks, defensive systems, and fast rope insertion equipment, deployed in support of Marine Raider and Special Operations missions. Chapter 53 A in Combat Recovery Role. Early Sea Stallions were quickly adapted for combat search and rescue and vehicle recovery in Vietnam, proving the value of heavy lift organic to marine aviation from the earliest deployments. Chapter 46, a Sea Knight, the tandem rotor medium lift helicopter that defined marine assault aviation for 50 years, entering service in 1964 as the primary troop carrier for amphibious operations. If you're enjoying the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing so you don't miss future uploads. Chapter 46, DC Knight, an improved variant with upgraded engines and de-icing systems, widely deployed during Vietnam and remaining in Marine service through multiple generations of expeditionary units. Chapter 46 is Sea Knight, the most extensively modified Sea Knight variant, upgraded with fiberglass composite rotor blades and improved avionics, forming the backbone of marine medium lift until the MV-22 replaced it in 2015. Sikorsky HRS-1, one of the earliest transport helicopters flown by the Marines, the HRS-1 conducted the world's first helicopter combat assault airlift in Korea in 1951. Piasecki HRP-1 Rescuer, known as the Flying Banana for its tandem rotor layout, among the first helicopters ever operated by the Marine Corps, entering service in 1947. Chapter 46, E in Combat Assault Configuration. Sea Knights in Vietnam and later operations were fitted with door guns, defensive systems, and expanded fuel for long-range assault missions deep into contested territory. CH-46D in Vertical Replenishment Configuration. CH-46D variants were extensively used for ship-to-ship and ship-to-shore vertical replenishment, an essential logistics role that sustained Marine Expeditionary Units at sea throughout the Cold War. Piasecki HRP-2, an improved version of the original Flying Banana with an enclosed metal fuselage, evaluated by the Marines as a follow-on transport, but not widely adopted beyond initial trials. Sikorsky HRS-3 in cargo configuration, an improved HRS variant used in Korea and the early 1950s for general cargo transport between ships and shore, helping establish the Marine Corps doctrine of ship-to-objective helicopter logistics. Sikorsky UA-52 Ho-5 SS, a 4-blade observation helicopter used by the Marines in Korea, capable of carrying 2 wounded Marines internally, and praised for its performance over earlier piston-era Bell platforms. O-58 Kiowa, the Bell Jet Ranger-derived scout helicopter used for short-range observation and liaison duties during and after Vietnam, entering service in 1969. Common Hawk 1, a light observation and liaison helicopter flown by the Marines in the mid-1950s, featuring Common's distinctive intermeshing rotor design and no conventional tail rotor. TH-57, a Sea Ranger, originally procured as a training platform, the Sea Ranger served in light observation, liaison, and photo chase roles across naval and marine aviation, beginning in 1968. A 1E in observation configuration. Marine Hueys were regularly configured for artillery spotting and aerial observation in Vietnam, operating alongside ground reconnaissance units across contested terrain. Bell HTL-4, the Marine Corps designation for the Bell 47 series, used for observation, liaison, and medevac in Korea, carrying wounded Marines externally on skid-mounted litters to forward aid stations. 06, a Cayuse, a compact, egg-shaped light observation helicopter evaluated by the Marine Corps in the late 1960s alongside Army Scout units, praised for its maneuverability in confined jungle environments. Sikorsky Ho-3S1 in observation role. The earliest operational helicopter in Marine service was also used for short-range reconnaissance and liaison, operated by HMX-1 and forward marine aviation units in the late 1940s and early 1950s. A 1N in armed reconnaissance configuration. Marine twin Hueys were configured with door guns and sensor packages for armed reconnaissance operations through the 1980s, a role bridging the gap between dedicated attack and pure utility platforms. Bell HTL-6, a later Bell 47 variant used by the Marines for observation and liaison from the late 1940s through the Korea era, the backbone of marine light aviation before dedicated turbine observation types entered service. Sikorsky HRS-3, an early HRS variant fitted with external litter mounts for combat casualty evacuation in Korea, among the first dedicated medevac helicopter operations in Marine Corps history. Which of these systems did you find the most interesting? Let us know in the comments, leave a like, and subscribe for more military history content. A 34D in medevac configuration. The Seahorse was the primary medevac platform in early Vietnam, extracting wounded under fire from jungle clearings too small for larger aircraft. UH-1E in medevac configuration. Marine Hueys performed thousands of casualty evacuations in Vietnam, responding directly to troops in contact across jungle combat zones with minimal turnaround time. H-1K in naval SAR role. The dedicated search and rescue Huey variant, used by Marine and Navy squadrons for overwater rescue missions throughout the Vietnam era and into the 1970s. EH-53E in trap configuration. Super Stallions configured for tactical recovery of aircraft and personnel, extracting downed aircrews and isolated units from behind enemy lines across multiple conflicts. UF-192 in SAR and medevac role. Marine twin Hueys served extensively in search and rescue and medical evacuation duties, equipped with rescue hoists and medical kits through the 1980s and 1990s. Sikorsky S-52 in medevac role. Used by the Marines in Korea for internal litter transport, the S-52 was one of the first helicopters capable of carrying wounded completely inside the aircraft rather than externally on litter pods. Bell Intel medevac configuration. Bell 47 variants fitted with external skid-mounted litter baskets rescued hundreds of wounded Marines during the Korean War, establishing the medevac helicopter as essential to Marine combat doctrine. Chapter 46, E in combat search and rescue configuration. Sea Knights were regularly tasked with combat search and rescue in Vietnam, equipped with rescue hoists and defensive systems to recover downed aircrew from hostile territory. MV-22B Osprey in medevac role. The Osprey's speed and range have been used in medical evacuation operations since entering service, capable of reaching casualties faster and flying them to medical facilities further away than any previous Marine helicopter. VH-34 Choctaw, the first dedicated Marine presidential helicopter, entering service in 1957 and carrying President Eisenhower before the turbine-powered Sea King replaced it in 1962. V-Swatch-3A Sea King early variant. The Sea King replaced the VH-34 Choctaw in 1962. beginning HMX-1's long tradition of turbine-powered presidential transport under the call sign Marine One. VH-3D Sea King, the primary presidential transport for HMX-1 from the late 1970s onward, carrying every U.S. president for decades under the call sign Marine One, until replaced by the VH-92A. VH-60N White Hawk, a specially configured Black Hawk variant, delivered to HMX-1 in 1989. Used for transporting the president and senior officials in all-weather conditions as a secondary executive platform. VH-92, the newest Marine One platform, built on the Sikorsky S-92 airframe and entering operational service with HMX-1 in 2024 after years of development and evaluation. A-1IN in VIP configuration. VH-1N twin Hueys were operated by HMX-1 as secondary executive transport, supporting White House operations alongside the larger presidential platforms. Sikorsky HO-3S1 in command support role. Early HMX-1 operations used the HO-3S1 for command liaison and senior officer transport during the late 1940s, establishing the precedent for dedicated executive helicopter support that would eventually evolve into Marine One. Chapter 53. E in command and control configuration. Super Stallions were configured with airborne command and control equipment for senior Marine commanders, providing mobile command capability during large-scale amphibious operations. UH-34D in senior officer transport role before the VH-34 was officially designated. Marine Seahorse variants were regularly used for senior officer transport in the late 1950s, including early White House support missions. Piasecki HUP-1 in command courier role. The compact HUP-1 served as a command courier and liaison aircraft aboard amphibious ships throughout the early 1950s, connecting senior Marine officers between ships and shore in real time.